After my brother Ethan's wedding, our house still looked like a celebration had spilled into every corner. Gift boxes were stacked near the sofa, ribbons hung from chair legs, and the air smelled like cake and perfume. I felt proud of him and happy for Grace, but mostly I felt tired. I had covered so many costs, extra food, last-minute suits, and a surprise bill for flowers. Everyone kept saying, "Daniel, you saved the day," like praise could refill my account. Late that night, I sat at the kitchen table and checked my bank app, expecting to see a painful total but at least a clear one. Instead, I saw something that made my stomach drop. $10,100 was missing. I refreshed the screen, then checked again, slow this time, as if my careful look could fix it. It didn't. My hands started to shake. I walked into the living room where my mom and my Aunt Elena were still awake, laughing over tea. "My money is gone," I said, showing them the screen. Mom laughed even harder and said, "You can't do anything." My chest tightened. Trembling, I reached into my bag and whispered, "Don't worry about what happens next." Right then, a loud noise shook the house, and the front door jolted like someone had hit it. The loud noise didn't sound like a knock. It sounded like something heavy had slammed into the door with its full weight, the kind of sound that makes your stomach jump before your mind can explain it. The cups on the side table rattled. A picture frame tilted and tapped the wall twice, like it wanted to fall but couldn't decide. For a second, none of us moved. Mom's laughter stopped so suddenly that the room felt colder. Elena's mouth stayed half open, frozen in the shape of a joke that no longer made sense. Then the front door handle turned, slow and steady, not rushed at all. I stood there with my hand still inside my bag, fingers wrapped around the edge of something firm. My heart hammered against my ribs. I didn't even know if I was holding my breath until I heard myself exhale in a shaky, thin line. Mom leaned forward slightly, her eyes fixed on the door like she expected it to apologize before entering. The door opened, and a man stepped inside as if he had been invited. He was tall, wearing a dark coat that looked expensive without trying to show off. His hair was neatly combed, and his eyes moved across the room in a calm sweep, taking everything in. The messy wedding ribbons, the half-finished tea, my trembling stance, Mom's sudden silence. Behind him came a woman with short blonde hair and a face that looked sharp in the same way a clean blade looks sharp, quiet, prepared, and not interested in being softened. She carried a slim folder under her arm like it was part of her body. Mom stood up, but she didn't speak right away. Elena shifted back on the sofa, her hands tightening around her cup. The man closed the door behind him with a careful click, as if the loud noise had never happened. He smiled, small and polite, and said, "Good evening." The woman's gaze landed on me and stayed there. "Daniel?" she asked, like she already knew the answer and was only checking for a reason. My throat felt dry. I nodded once. "Yes." The man took a step forward. "My name is Marcus Hale," he said, then nodded toward the woman. "And this is Clara Stone." Their names sounded like they belonged to people who didn't wait in lines or explain themselves to strangers. Clara didn't say hello. She only watched, as if the room itself might lie. Mom finally found her voice. "Who are you?" she asked, trying to sound firm, but it came out strained. "How did you get in here?" Marcus didn't answer the second question. He looked at Mom with a calm expression that didn't match the tension in the room. "We're here about a transfer," he said. Elena let out a short laugh that didn't carry any humor. "Transfer," she repeated, like the word was too silly to be real. Clara stepped forward and placed the folder on the coffee table. The sound of it touching the table was soft, but it felt louder than it should have. "The $10,100,000, she said. It didn't disappear. It moved. My stomach twisted. Hearing the amount out loud from a stranger's mouth made it feel more real and more dangerous. I pulled my phone closer to my chest without meaning to. "How do you know about that?" I asked. Clara didn't blink. "Because it was flagged," she said. "Because the route it took is familiar." She looked past me briefly, toward the kitchen doorway, as if mapping the house in her head. Then she looked back at my face. "And because someone wanted you to notice." Mom made a sound like she was about to protest, but Marcus raised a hand slightly. Not threatening, just a quiet signal that he was speaking now. "Daniel," he said, "I understand you're confused. But you're not the only person who's been touched by this kind of move." His words were careful, and the way he said touched made it feel like money had hands. Someone used an event, used noise, used distraction. Weddings are very useful that way. My cheeks burned. I hated that he was right. The wedding had been so crowded with lists and calls and last-minute changes that I could barely remember eating a proper meal. If someone wanted to hide something in all that chaos, it would have been easy. Elena cleared her throat. Maybe it's just the bank, she said, too quickly. Maybe it's a mistake. Clara opened the folder and slid out a single page covered in numbers and lines. She held it up so only I could see it clearly. It's not a mistake, she said. This was done by a person, not a system. I stared at the paper. I didn't understand every line, but I understood enough. There were dates, times, a movement from my account into another place and then split into smaller pieces, like someone breaking a big item into parts to carry it easier. One line was circled in red, and next to it was a name written in simple black letters, Sophie Reed. My breath caught. I knew that name. Sophie had been around the wedding like she belonged to it. She had offered help at the perfect moments, smiled at everyone, carried boxes without being asked, and somehow always had the answer when a problem appeared. She had been the kind of person people trusted quickly because she acted like she had nothing to hide. I looked up at Mom, and something in her face shifted again, tiny, almost invisible, but enough. Her eyes slid away from mine for a fraction of a second. I felt my anger flare up. You know her, I said, not as a question but as a sharp statement. Mom's lips tightened. She's a friend, she said. Or, she was around. She helped. Marcus watched our exchange as if he had been waiting for it. Sophie Reed is not just a helper, he said. She's a runner. She moves things for someone else. He spoke like he wasn't guessing. She used your wedding costs as cover. She made it look like you approved the transfer. My stomach dropped again, but now it was mixed with heat, rage, humiliation, disbelief. I didn't approve anything, I said. My voice came out louder than I expected. I would have seen it. Clara tilted her head slightly, and for the first time her face showed something close to sympathy. When people are stressed, they click faster, she said. They sign quicker. They trust the wrong person because the right person is too busy. Elena set her cup down with shaking hands. This is insane, she whispered. This is just money. Marcus's eyes flicked to her. Money is never just money, he said. Not when it moves like this. He turned back to me. Daniel, do you want it back? The question was so direct it startled me. Of course, I said. It's mine. Marcus nodded. Then listen carefully. Sophie is not doing this for herself. Your $10,100 was collected, then redirected. You were tested. Tested for what? I asked. Clara answered, calm and flat. For how you react. For whether you accept the loss. For whether you fight. She glanced at Mum again, and that glance felt like it held a whole secret conversation. Some families fold. Some don't. Mom's face went pale. What are you implying? She asked. Marcus ignored the question and looked at my hand still inside my bag. And what are you holding? He asked, voice gentle but sharp. I froze. I hadn't realized he noticed. My fingers tightened instinctively. For a second I thought about pulling my hand out and pretending I wasn't holding anything. But Clara's eyes were locked on me like she would see through the lie anyway. Slowly, I pulled my hand out. I didn't show what I was gripping yet, but I let them see that it was something solid and small, something I had reached for without thinking. It's nothing, I said, and even I could hear that it wasn't convincing. Clara took a step closer, not too fast. Daniel, she said quietly, we don't want you to do something desperate. Desperate people make easy mistakes. I swallowed. I'm not desperate, I said, but my voice shook. Marcus softened his tone. You're scared, he corrected. That's normal. But if you want answers, you need to come with us. Mom's head snapped up. No, she said, sudden and loud. He's not going anywhere with strangers. Clara's eyes didn't move from my face. We're not strangers, she said. Not to your mother. The room went silent again, heavier than before. Mom's mouth opened, then closed. Elena stared between them, confused and frightened, as if she had walked into the wrong story. I looked at Mom. What does she mean? I asked. Mom's hands clenched and unclenched at her sides. She didn't answer. She didn't deny it either. Marcus took a small step back, giving me space to breathe, but his words pressed forward anyway. This can go two ways, he said. You can stay here, pretend you lost the money to bad luck, and let Sophie vanish into the crowd. Or you can come with us, and we can show you where it went." He paused, then added, "And why?" My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. I glanced at Elena, who looked like she wanted to disappear into the sofa. I looked at Mom, who looked like she was holding back something she had carried for years. I looked at the messy ribbons and flattened boxes, proof of how easily life can be dressed up and sold as joy. Then I looked down at my bag, at the thing I was still holding. I didn't know what I had been planning when I reached for it, but I understood now that this was bigger than a missing number on a screen. I lifted my head and met Clara's eyes. "Where would we go?" I asked. Marcus answered without hesitation. "First to a safe place," he said. "Then, depending on what we find, either Europe or America." Mom's face tightened like she was in pain. "Daniel," she whispered, warning and pleading at the same time. But the word she had spoken earlier echoed in my head. "You can't do anything." I took one slow breath. Then another. My fear was still there, but something else grew beside it. Stubbornness, clarity, a refusal to be laughed at like I was a child. "I'm coming," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Marcus nodded once, as if he had already expected that answer. Clara gave a small, satisfied exhale. Mom's eyes filled with something complicated. Worry, regret, maybe even recognition. And as Marcus turned toward the door, I realized the loud noise that shook the house wasn't just an interruption. It was a doorway opening into a world I didn't know existed, and somehow, without meaning to, I had already stepped toward it. We didn't leave right away. Marcus said we needed 10 minutes, no more, and Clara looked around our living room like she was measuring danger in the corners. Mom stood by the sofa with her arms crossed, trying to look strong, but her eyes kept flicking to the door as if she expected someone else to follow. Elena sat stiffly, her tea untouched now, her laughter fully gone. The wedding mess suddenly felt embarrassing. Ribbons, empty boxes, a forgotten heel by the chair, like our house had been caught unprepared for serious people. I went to my room and threw a few things into my bag, a hoodie, my charger, a small notebook, and the envelope where I kept receipts. My hands still shook, but I forced them to move carefully. As I zipped the bag, my phone buzzed again with the banking screen still open, that bright missing amount staring back at me like an insult. I couldn't stop thinking about Sophie Reed's smile at the wedding, how she had moved so smoothly between people, like she belonged everywhere. I remembered her saying, "Don't stress, Daniel. I'll handle it," and I hated how much I had believed her. When I returned to the living room, Clara was speaking quietly to Mom near the hallway, her voice low but sharp. "I only caught pieces. Too late. Already involved. And you knew." Mom's face had gone pale, and Elena kept looking between them like she was watching a private argument in a foreign language. Marcus stood near the front door, calm as a locked box. He glanced at me and nodded once, as if my arrival completed a checklist. We left through the front door as if nothing unusual had happened, but the street felt different. The night air was cold and clean, and the world outside our house looked too normal for what was happening. A neighbor's porch light glowed softly. Somewhere a dog barked. Marcus led us to a dark car parked a little away from the house, not directly in front. Clara opened the back door for me, and I slid in, my bag tight against my chest. The seats smelled faintly like leather and something bitter, like strong coffee. When Marcus started the engine, it purred quietly, almost polite. As we drove through the city, streetlights flashed over Clara's face in quick stripes. She didn't talk much. She watched reflections in windows, checked mirrors, and kept one hand near her jacket pocket as if she didn't like being empty-handed. Marcus drove smoothly, like he knew every road without thinking. I tried to ask questions, but my voice kept catching. Finally I said, "How did you find me?" Marcus didn't look away from the road. "Sophie's patterns," he answered. "She doesn't steal for fun. She steals for someone else. She uses predictable cover, events, busy people, family noise." He paused, then added, "You are a perfect target." That made anger rise in me again. "So I'm just a target?" Clara turned her head slightly. "You're a person who hasn't decided what kind of person you are yet," she said. "Targets stay quiet. Problems get loud." We reached a small house on a quiet street, one that looked like it belonged to an ordinary couple with ordinary routines. The porch was plain, the curtains drawn, the yard trimmed. Marcus unlocked the door with a key, and we went inside. The place was clean and simple, No photos, no personal clutter, just furniture that looked chosen to blend in. A safe house, exactly like Marcus had said. My shoulders loosened a little, though my mind didn't. Clara set her folder on the kitchen table and opened it again. Marcus poured water into 3 glasses, as if we were about to have a normal conversation. I didn't drink. I couldn't. I kept imagining Sophie Reed stepping onto a plane, disappearing into a crowd, laughing about how easy it had been. I asked, "Where is she now?" Clara slid a printed page across the table. "She was seen near a small airport," she said. "Ticket booked under her name. One way." She tapped another line with her finger. "Destination, America." The word hit me like cold water. I had never planned to chase anyone across anything. I had barely planned past the wedding. "Why America?" I asked. "Why not just stay here?" Marcus leaned back in his chair, folding his hands. "Because she thinks she'll be protected there," he said. "Because the person she works for has roots that run between Europe and America. She's moving your money into a place where it becomes harder to grab." Clara opened another page and pushed it toward me. It showed a list of wedding-related charges, most of them real, some of them strange. One line was circled in red. Consulting fee, £4,000. My mouth went dry. "I never paid a consulting fee," I said. "You did," Clara replied, calm. "Not knowingly. It was placed among real wedding expenses. It looks normal enough if you're tired, distracted, and trying to keep 10 other people happy." I stared at the paper, remembering how I'd clicked through invoices quickly, how I'd trusted what Sophie or others told me. Shame crawled up my neck. "So she hid it," I said. "She hid it," Marcus agreed, "and she used it as the bridge to move the $10,10,000. He paused, then said a name like it should mean something to me. "The money was directed toward Nathan Crow." I blinked. "I don't know who that is." Clara's eyes stayed steady. "You don't need to know him to be in his path," she said. "Nathan Crow collects small amounts from many people. Not because he needs the money, but because it proves control. It proves reach. It proves he can touch your life without stepping into your house." My stomach tightened. I remembered Clara's earlier words. "Someone wanted you to notice." "So, this is a test," I said again, more certain now. Marcus nodded slowly. "A test, yes. But also a message. Someone wants to see whether you accept being laughed at." His gaze sharpened briefly, aimed somewhere behind my eyes. "And someone wants to see how your family reacts." That last part made me glance away. Mom's face in the living room flashed in my mind, her laughter stopping the moment Marcus and Clara entered, her silence when Clara said they weren't strangers to her. My anger shifted, twisting into something more confused. "My mom knows you," I said quietly. Clara closed the folder with a firm tap. "Your mother knows more than she told you," she said. "But that conversation can wait. Right now, Sophie is the moving piece." I sat back, exhausted. The safe house felt too still, like it was waiting. My bag sat on the floor by my feet. I reached into it and pulled out the old notebook I had packed without thinking, along with the envelope of receipts. When the envelope opened, a small folded slip fell out onto the table. Clara's eyes went to it instantly. "What's that?" I unfolded it and felt my face heat up. It was an old payment confirmation, something I had almost forgotten. £200, paid to S. Reed, dated weeks before the wedding. Sophie had told me it was needed to secure bookings. I had sent it without much thought because I was rushing and she sounded confident. Clara's expression didn't change, but her voice softened just a little. "You paid her before," she said. "Yeah," I admitted, my voice small. "Because I trusted her." Marcus stood and walked toward the window, looking out through a narrow gap in the curtain. "That's exactly why she chose you," he said. "You're responsible. You carry problems for other people. You want peace. Those things make you useful, until you decide you're not." Clara gathered the papers back into the folder and slid it toward Marcus. "We leave before sunrise," she said. "If we move early, we can reach the airport before she boards." My heart thudded. "And if she's already gone?" Marcus turned from the window and looked at me with calm certainty. "Then we follow the trail," he said. "Europe and America are connected by more than flights. Money leaves footprints." I stared at the receipt in my hand one last time, then folded it and put it back in the envelope like I could lock the mistake away. But I couldn't. I had made that payment, and it had opened a door. Now the door was wide, and I could feel cold air coming through. Clara's voice brought me back. "Try to rest," she said. "Your head needs to be clear." I nodded, but I knew rest wouldn't come easily. I lay down on the safe house couch later, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant city sounds outside. In my mind I kept replaying Mom's laugh, Sophie's smile, and Marcus's calm voice saying, "You were tested." Somewhere between that missing $10,10,000 and the plane ticket to America, my life had shifted into a story I didn't recognize. And the worst part was this: I could already feel myself changing into someone who wouldn't let it go. We left the safe house before the sky fully changed color, that strange hour when the world looks flat and quiet, like it hasn't decided what kind of day it will be. Marcus drove again, smooth and steady, while Clara sat beside me in the back seat, checking her phone and watching the road like she could read trouble in the traffic lights. I kept my bag on my lap, fingers wrapped around the strap. My mind kept jumping between two thoughts that didn't fit together. This is real, and this can't be real. I had paid for a wedding a few days ago. Now I was chasing a thief toward an airport, like I'd stepped into somebody else's life. The airport was already awake. People wheeled suitcases, bought coffee, stared at screens, and talked in the tired voices travelers always have. Everything looked normal, which made me feel even more tense, because normal is a perfect cover. Marcus didn't rush. He moved with the calm of someone who had done this before. Clara kept close, her eyes scanning faces, exits, and corners. They led me through the crowd with just enough space around us to breathe, but not enough for me to run off on my own. We spotted Sophie Reed near a gate line, standing with one small carry-on bag like she was going on a simple trip. She wore a neat coat and had her hair pulled back, and she was smiling at something on her phone. For a second I felt dizzy, because she looked so ordinary, like someone who had never taken anything from anyone. Then I remembered the $10,10,000 missing from my account, and the dizziness turned into anger so sharp it made my hands steady. Clara nodded at me once. "Go," she said. My feet moved before I could fully think. I walked straight toward Sophie, and as I got closer, she looked up. Her eyes widened just slightly, then her smile returned, quick and smooth, like she had practiced it. "Daniel," she said warmly, like seeing me was a happy surprise. "What are you doing here?" I stopped in front of her and held up my phone. "You took $10,10,000, I said. My voice was quiet, but it didn't shake. "Where is it?" Sophie sighed as if I was being dramatic. "Oh, Daniel," she said, lowering her voice like we were sharing a secret. "It's complicated. You don't want to do this here." "I do," I said. "You used the wedding. You used my stress. You hid it." Her smile tightened. "Don't act like you're the only person who worked hard," she snapped softly, the warmth slipping away. "Everyone was under pressure." "That doesn't give you a right," I replied. "That money was mine." Sophie glanced past me, and I saw her eyes flicker toward Marcus and Clara in the distance. Her expression changed again. The fake friendliness fell, and something colder surfaced. "So you brought company," she said, almost amused. Marcus stepped forward then, calm as ever. "Sophie Reed," he said, "you need to come with us." Sophie's shoulders stiffened. She looked between them and me, measuring what she could get away with. "Who are you?" she asked Marcus, but the way she asked it told me she already had a guess. Clara spoke, sharp and clear. "We know about the transfer route," she said. "We know about the cover charge, pound 4000 labeled as consulting. And we know the money was redirected to Nathan Crow." The name landed like a stone. Sophie's eyes narrowed. For the first time, her confidence cracked. She recovered quickly, but I saw it. I saw the fear hidden under her practiced face. "You really don't understand," Sophie said, leaning closer to me. "You think you're chasing a thief. You're not. You're stepping into something bigger than your little account balance." "My little account paid for my brother's wedding," I said. "And you laughed in my house. You drank tea with my family." Sophie's mouth twisted. "People laugh everywhere," she said. "In Europe. In America. Laughter doesn't mean loyalty." She lifted her chin slightly. "You were easy, Daniel. You were proud to be the hero. You didn't notice the hands in your pocket while you were clapping for the bride." Her words stung because they were partly true. I had been so focused on keeping the wedding perfect that I had missed the small signs, the tiny moments that didn't add up. I wanted to yell at her, But instead I felt something settle inside me, heavy and steady. I was tired of being used. Tired of being told to accept it. Tired of being laughed at. Marcus took one step closer. "Sophie," he said, voice low, "last chance. Come quietly." Sophie's eyes darted to the boarding line, to the security guard nearby, to the flow of people. She was calculating. Then she looked straight at me, and her tone changed into something almost gentle, like she was giving me a gift. "Daniel," she whispered, "I can send you $5,000 today. No mess. No more strangers in your life. You walk away, and you get half back. The rest later." For a split second, my chest tightened. Half the money, right away, would feel like relief. It would feel like an exit. I could go home, slam the door, and pretend this was over. I could tell myself I had won enough. I could return to normal. Then I heard Mom's voice in my head, laughing. "You can't do anything." And I remembered how she stopped laughing when Marcus and Clara entered. I remembered her silence when Clara said they weren't strangers. I remembered the way Sophie had moved through the wedding, touching everything, shaping everything, and smiling like she owned the whole day. I looked Sophie in the eyes. "No," I said. Her face hardened instantly. "Then you're stupid," she hissed. Clara moved first. She stepped to the side and spoke to the security guard in a firm, controlled voice. Marcus lifted his hand and showed something small and official-looking, and the guard's expression changed. Sophie opened her mouth to protest, but the guard and another worker were already there, blocking her path. Sophie tried to pull her carry-on back, but Marcus's grip was steady without being cruel. In seconds, the line that had been normal life became a scene that didn't belong in it. As Sophie was led away, she twisted her head to look at me. Her eyes were bright with anger and something else, warning. "You think you've won," she snapped. "Nathan won't forget you." My throat tightened, but I kept my voice calm. "Tell him to remember," I said, surprising myself with the words. "Because I'm not laughing anymore." When she disappeared into a side corridor, the airport noise rushed back into my ears. Announcements, footsteps, rolling bags. The world continued like nothing had happened, and that felt strange, like I had just watched a storm move through a room without breaking the walls. I turned to Marcus and Clara. "Now what?" I asked, my voice low. Marcus's expression stayed calm, but his eyes were serious. "Now we trace the rest," he said. "Sophie is only one piece." Clara watched me for a moment, like she was checking whether I would fold or stand. "And now," she added quietly, "you decide how much truth you can handle." I frowned. "What truth?" Clara's gaze flicked away for a second, then returned. "Your mother didn't laugh because she thought you were powerless," she said. "She laughed because she thought you already knew the rules." My stomach dropped. "What rules?" Marcus stepped closer, voice steady. "The rules of the game that moves between Europe and America," he said. "The one that uses dollars and pounds like they are strings." He looked at me like he was placing something heavy into my hands. "If you want your money back, Daniel, you don't just chase Sophie. You face what your family has been hiding." I stood there in the middle of the airport, holding my bag like it was the last piece of my old life. My brother's wedding felt far away now, like a bright picture behind glass. In front of me was something darker and sharper, something I couldn't unsee. And as the departure boards blinked above us, I realized the story wasn't ending with Sophie being caught. It was only turning the page.